Yo, what's going on, guys? Chadley here, and in today's video, this is a video that I've wanted to make for quite a while, basically since the release of DLC 5, but I got caught up with Cyberpunk stuff, and then overall, I just kind of took a long break from Borderlands 3. I'm starting to get back into it, especially with DLC 6 coming relatively in the near future with the Ascension Bluff door opening and all that stuff, so we're definitely going to be jumping back in for that. But otherwise, for this video, I just wanted to explain to you guys why Zane is such a problem in his current state. So all you Zane mains out there, get ready to get angry, because I might piss you off here, and I'm sorry about that, but it's the truth, and it honestly hurts the game for everybody. So for this video, I'm just going to explain how we came to be in this current state of Zane, why it's such a problem, and also ways they can fix this. And before you type it as a comment, it's a PvE game, why nerf anything? It doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt anybody. I will be addressing that specifically on why this needs to be fixed, because that is a completely invalid argument for this game. It seriously does matter how balanced things are, and I will get to that later in the video. But for right now, let's go ahead and just jump into how we got to this point. So to start off, the first section I want to talk about is just how did Zane get to this point that we are now. So basically, before DLC 5, Zane was considered one of the weaker Vault Hunters, but people didn't really know why. They thought it was one thing, but it really was not the case. They just thought he was not very good, didn't have very good skills. Green Tree is a prime example of not really having the greatest skills in it, but Blue Tree is honestly an insane skill tree, and it has violent momentum, which just gives absolutely ridiculous gun damage, 420% when you're at 5 out of 5, and there's no other bonuses, so if you put on Death Follows Close, that's even more, and it just ends up being honestly one of the strongest skills in the game. You just have to be making sure you are moving fast. But in my opinion, honestly, one of the biggest problems with Zane before was he had no reliable way of proccing action skill and anointments. So with bonus elements being as strong as they are in this game, they're basically a crutch. Like, if you guys have ever tried to play without bonus elements, you know how difficult and beefy some of these enemies are. But once you throw these on, they're seriously a piece of cake. And that was his problem, in my opinion. If you guys ever used Doppelbanger and just were exploding your clone to get action skill and anointments, you would know Zane actually did a ton of damage. But then you were just kind of limited to the 10 seconds that the bonus elements were active, and then you'd go down and back to basically pretty little damage. So with all that taken into account, what Gearbox ended up doing was creating this purple tree for Zane, which basically invalidates all of the other Vault Hunters. It takes the best pieces of each Vault Hunter and gives them to Zane, and he also gets an insane action skill on top of it, which procs all the action skill and anointments, action skill active anointments, and action skill start anointments. On top of that, it also has the lowest cooldown for an action skill in the game. It is 12 seconds, and for reference, Rack Attack for Flak is 18 seconds, and you also cannot shoot while that happens. And then also Mantis can hold up to 5 charge when you use Proliferation as an augment. And then also you can get charges back with Brain Drain. If you kill an enemy with a critical hit, you get 2 charges back instantly. So this thing is super, super easy to keep all of your charges, and you can shoot it like a machine gun. You can do basically whatever you want while shooting Mantis, basically, except for sliding, and it's nuts. And then honestly, one of the biggest issues in this entire tree, and is also another reason why you can shoot Mantis like a machine gun, is the skill commitment. So Zane gains increased gun damage and action skill cooldown rate. This is nuts. There is no cap to the amount of stacks you can have with this. You get a stack basically every single time. So if you're using Seeing Dead, you can just shoot an enemy and get that. So if you have a fast-firing, high-pellet weapon, you can get stacks into the hundreds, and that is just disgusting. And then if you guys are using a spy class mod, you can boost it by 4 to 5 points, and then also activate a stack of it every single time you use Mantis. So without doing anything, fighting no enemies, all I'm doing is sitting here and activating Mantis. Given enough time, I can stack commitment up to about 30 to 40 stacks. That is it. Just hitting one button, 30 to 40 stacks. And at 9 out of 5, that's 54% gun damage and cooldown rate per stack. And that's obviously with Death Follows Close, and is hands down the strongest skill in the entire game. Then in case that wasn't enough, we go down to the skill Eraser. So Zane's critical hits pierce through enemies for all weapons, dealing increased damage for every enemy pierce. So this is basically Boar, but just with critical hits, and it's nuts. So if you guys use a Hustler route, you will know how ridiculous this can get. Also, just for bosses that you can easily crit, this is just nuts for destroying them in about 0.2 seconds. And there's some guns that just go crazy with this, like the conference call. You can one-shot Grave Ward every single time just with having Eraser and shooting his chest with a conference call and an amp shield. And then for his capstone on his skill tree, which you can also get on the Spy class mod from Arms Race, is R-Man Flit. So while aiming down sight, Zane's weapons deal bonus damage and automatically apply their status effect when he scores a critical hit. So with 2 out of 1, we get 50% damage boost. And then obviously we're going to be applying that status effect as well. So you can instantly freeze people and apply your Icebreaker artifact. So that's usually what I'll run here. And that's just a ton of extra, just straight up damage, and is just overall way too strong, especially with all the other skills given in here. And then in case if all of that purple tree stuff was not enough, another change they made was with duct tape mod here. They made it so Zane is immune to self splash damage when you have just 1 point into this tier 2 skill. That's all you need, and you are self immune. Dots can still kill you, but if you build around it, you can just never die and nuke the entire map. So now that we have background on what was added for Zane, why this is such a problem, first off, we're going to start off how this invalidates basically all the other characters. Like I was saying, they put basically all positive points of the other characters into Zane. So from like Amara's standpoint, he gets the status effect stuff, so he can like instantly freeze. He's way better at freezing stuff than Amara is, even with her purple tree. Zane also has more critical damage than Flak does, which is nuts in my opinion. And also this is way less conditional than Flak is. Flak stuff, usually with like Ambush Predator, you got to be a certain distance. Really the only thing is Galactic Shadow and then Most Dangerous Game are really like the only two that are not really conditional for Flak, but then that still ends up being less crit damage than what Zane is given here with 60%. And then Duct Tape mod basically invalidates Mose because she is a splash character and really needs self immunity to splash. That's honestly the main reason you'll go down with Mose, is because of self splash, and she still does not have a way to protect herself from that, but Zane is given it out of just 1 point in a tier 2 skill. And then going back to Flak, Rack Attack was honestly the best way of spamming action skill, and then also all of the annoyance that follow with it. That is just no longer the case with Mantis, and it honestly just invalidates Rack Attack right there. All of that put together, why does that create such a problem as a whole for Borderlands 3? Well, basically it invalidates all content in the game, and also produces things like the Guardian Takedown upscaled. So like all these enemies in Guardian Takedown have more health than anything else in the game, which I personally like, but honestly is not the greatest considering it makes everything else have to be scaled to be able to do this. So that's why we have the DLC 3 weapons and basically all these power corrupt weapons, is because this content was made with stuff like this in mind, and is now the only slightly challenging content. Honestly, Zane is way past the Guardian Takedown, but if you try to do any base game activity with Zane, it is just a breeze. You're going to be one-shotting everything with any gun you want to be using. So on stream, we have made Zane as a problem. This is just the name of this character. It's basically our flash freeze Zane, but just using really stupid guns. So like the multi-tap, Oculist, Hyperfocus, Freeman, all of these things wreck on this character because it just doesn't matter. We're getting practically infinite gun damage out of Violent Momentum and Commitment, and then we can obviously spam Mantis and all this good stuff. So if we go ahead and just take a look, this is true Guardian Takedown. I can just spam all of these Mantis shots, freeze everything around me with the Frozen Heart, and deal increased damage to them because of my Icebreaker. And then we have just insane gun damage, and we can instantly murder all of these things with weapons that should never be able to kill something here in the Guardian Takedown. This is our pinnacle activity here in the game, and this just completely trivializes it. There is no point to really a build with it. As long as you spec blue and purple tree, you're good to go. You can use practically whatever weapon you want, And this is just overall going to create more content like the Guardian Takedown where it's scaled up. It's going to keep getting harder and harder to keep up with Zane and all of the new guns that have been added to the game. And it's just going to make all of the base game stuff irrelevant. So if you guys really like doing trials, there's not going to be a challenge there anymore. There already isn't. And then if this keeps going, it's going to be less and less of a challenge and just get really, really annoying really quick. For example, the Oculus here. I bet you guys have probably never used this gun, or if you did, it was on like your first playthrough. I can just use a 200 splash version and destroy everything in just 1 to 2 shots in the hardest activity in the entire game. This gun should never find its way into this takedown and should never destroy things this quickly. So with the Ascension Bluff door opening soon, we're left with basically 2 choices for that raid boss. Either they scale it up and actually make it difficult for the weapons that we have now, which is going to be great, but over time, they're going to be adding weapons and buffing weapons so they can do that new raid boss. And then those weapons now just one-shot every other thing in the entire game, and we're just left with this hole of a challenge in the game. So that's why specifically balancing characters does matter for PvE games. This is just not something that can just sit here forever. This is way different than like Salvador in Borderlands 2, which everybody memes on him being basically a cheat code, and all of his like crazy damage and stuff basically all came from just weird interactions having 2 weapons, and that was kind of glitch-esque related territory. There's nothing like glitched about this. This is just straight up power creep. There is no other way about this. 54% gun damage and cooldown rate per stack. That's ridiculous, and no stack cap. This needs to be capped. There needs to be something done about Zane. It is just gonna keep driving this game further and further down in terms of replayability. We're already struggling for content, and we don't need these power creeps to keep invalidating more and more content as we go along in this game. So now, how can Gearbox fix this issue? Well, it is going to revolve around some nerfs. I know you guys absolutely despise nerfs, even though Gearbox buffs way more than they actually nerf. There's been very few nerfs in the grand scheme of this game, and there's just been countless buffs. So honestly, we really do need to nerf some things here in Purple Tree Zane, but I promise you, after these nerfs, he will have still 0 issue with the game, but it's just not going to be completely out of hand. So let's go ahead and start with Mantis. My main changes with this thing would be just increase the cooldown, make it like 22 seconds. It should not be quicker than Rack Attack, considering it can have 5 charges, shoot like a machine gun, and also get 2 charges back with the Brain Drain Augment here. This should be kind of a precision weapon, not just spam the hell out of a button, break your mouse or keyboard controller, whatever you have it set to. That should just not be the purpose of Mantis. Next up, commitment needs to be stacked at 2 stacks, because with 9 out of 5 here, which a lot of people will be running, or at least trying to run, just getting as much commitment as possible on your spy comms, that is still over 100% gun damage and cooldown rate when you're capped at 2 stacks. This would also limit the Mantis spam as well. And overall, this is still would be one of the best skills in the entire game, and you will have no issues with any content with 2 stacks of commitment. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't know how to fix Eraser. I knew this was going to be broken the moment they announced it. It is Boar. There is no fixing Boar. There's so many weird things you can do with this, and I really have no way of knowing how to fix this. Maybe just pierce 1 enemy and that's it. But I think this is just going to be something that we're going to have to live with here. And then for duct tape mod, I think an easy way of fixing this and not just be straight self-immunity for 1 point would be, if you are spec'd into at least a point in here, just make it so you're self-immune to splash for like a second after the grenade comes out of the gun. It should really only be active once that grenade is procced. It already has to know when to send out the grenade, so it should also be able to tell when to make you immune. Finally, another way they can make the Purple Tree less viable and overpowered would also be just making Green Tree less of a mess than it is and way more viable. There's basically no reason to go down this tree, and also distributed denial basically doesn't work with many shields at all. I think it's only like a couple it's really works on. So stuff like that needs to be changed and fixed, and I think it would draw people away from purple tree a little bit and into these green and orange trees. I always think blue is just going to be something that is a staple, kind of like orange tree with flak. There's going to be a few niche scenarios where you don't go down this, but for the most part, almost all builds are going to be using blue tree. But overall, these changes I would want to Zane and just these issues with Zane, I'm pointing these out because I love Borderlands 3. I want it to be as fun as possible. And if everybody could just live with a little bit of a nerf, he's still going to be probably the best character in the entire game if the changes that I said would happen. And I think it would just overall make the experience much better. It's going to prevent us from going down this power creep rabbit hole that this game is currently going through. And I just want the replayability to be there, especially since we are lacking in content. But obviously, another reason I'm making this video is so I can talk to you guys and see what you guys think. So make sure you do leave comments down below. Let me know what you think. Just be respectful to everybody involved. There's no point of going at each other for this. We all love this game. We all want to see it thrive. So just let me know what you think and why your way would be the way of making this game thrive. Zane mains, I'm really sorry, but this video needed to be made and we need to talk about this. But hopefully you guys did find this video helpful or informative. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on it to let me know. Also consider subscribing for more Borderlands 3 content. But I hope you all have a fantastic day and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.